Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Georgia Tech Manufacturing Institute's Fall Lunch and Learn lecture series. My name is Billy D. Brown. I'm a research faculty and director of manufacturing education programs with GTMI. GTMI is one of 11 Georgia Tech interdisciplinary research institutes that uniquely focuses on manufacturing research, development, and deployment. We help tackle the grand challenges of today's manufacturers and assist partners in moving innovations from the lab to the market. GTMI has a wide variety of facilities and equipment located on main campus for basic research and nearby on 14th Street for more applied research in our advanced manufacturing pilot facility. GTMI's mission includes education and workforce training, collaborative partnerships with industry, academia, and government, as well as thought leadership. GTMI hosts a Lunch and Learn series each semester. That's where we are now. And this fall, sessions will be held every Monday at noon as live online events. These sessions are excellent opportunities for Georgia Tech faculty, student researchers, undergraduate, graduate level students and researchers, as well as a global manufacturing community to learn and share advanced manufacturing knowledge. To ensure a smooth presentation experience, all audience members are automatically muted. If you have questions or comments for the speaker, please use the question and answer panel. I strongly encourage everyone to submit their questions as soon as you have them formulated, and the speaker will address them promptly at the end of the presentation. Today, I'm pleased to introduce Professor Chip White, who will discuss impact of COVID-19 on manufacturing supply chain design and operations. Dr. White is the Schneider National Chair of Transportation and Logistics and professor in the School of Industrial and Systems Engineering at Georgia Tech. He was the former director of the A.P. Sloan Foundation Trucking Industry Program and the former executive director of the Supply Chain and Logistics Institute at Georgia Tech. While at the University of Michigan, Dr. White was founding engineering co-director of what is now the Tauber Institute for Global Operations. He's a former member of the board of directors of Conway Incorporated and of the board of advisors of FreightWaves, a futures and options marketplace for transportation capacity. He is a current member of the board of directors of the Industry Studies Association. He's given testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, the California Senate Committee on Transportation and Housing public hearing on intelligent transportation systems, and the Joint Georgia State Senate and House Future of Manufacturing Study Committee on Trends and Challenges in Supply Chain Logistics and Engineering. In today's session, Dr. White will focus his presentation on the recent growing interest in supply chains and their role in delivering goods to the American consumer, in large part due to the impact of COVID-19 on American life and the stresses on supply chains that have resulted in reduced customer service levels. Dr. White will discuss approaches for strengthening supply chain resilience and agility, or the ability to quickly adjust to sudden disruptive changes that negatively affect supply chain performance, with special interest in cybersecurity. Dr. White, you may begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Billy D. Thank you for that nice introduction. And I'd like to thank the Georgia Tech Manufacturing Institute for allowing me to give you my impressions of the impact of COVID-19 on manufacturing supply chains. What I will do in terms of outline is to give a brief overview of supply chains, talk about supply chain cost and risks, and as Billy D indicated, the growing interest in resilience and agility in supply chains, and in large part due to the coronavirus pandemic that we are currently experiencing. I'll give some very specific issues and impacts of COVID-19, a whole series of them, and then end up the presentation with some final comments on cybersecurity, automation, and what we envision as next generation supply chains, in large part framed by the COVID-19 and some other major disruption experiences that we've had. With respect to an overview, basically the extended enterprise is a network of independent companies, original equipment manufacturing company, an OEM, with suppliers who coordinate the flow of goods through a supply chain that hopefully produces a product that's better, cheaper, and faster to the market than the competition. And the supply chain is the flow of goods through the system from raw equipment or raw material suppliers all the way through manufacturers and to the consumer. But it also represents a flow of information. We'll be focusing on that a good little bit, and the flow of money. Now, specifically, supply chain, for example, for durable goods manufacturing, think auto, there will be suppliers who provide components to the manufacturer or the assembler, who then produces a final product that then is sent to distributors for sale to customers. And there are a variety of different ways of of organizing this flow of goods. One is called push methods of control, and this is identical or synonymous with mass production, where we essentially produce a long line of or a large number of products to take advantage of the economies of scale, and we may end up with too many or too few products for sale that might result in stockouts, or in some cases we may have products that we can't sell. Typically what happens with mass production is we have a lot of inventory. We don't have to spend much on inventory, information systems or transport systems. Another strategy, supply chain strategy, is pull methods of control. This is similar to build to order or mass customization, and basically what it requires is a very agile supply chain that adjusts very quickly to demand shifts and the interest in the product. And it uses information and data much more so than the push system or mass production system. And it represents perhaps a newer form of supply chain strategy based on the fact that we now have more data to work with and more sophisticated information systems to use. There is flow of point of sales data and other forms of data back up through the supply chain, and also some material returns, recycled products. This is the reverse logistics that occurs in supply chains. Suppliers are multi-tiered. A first-tier supplier that ships components directly to a manufacturer often has suppliers themselves, second-tier suppliers, third-tier suppliers, and so forth. And of course, the product itself is designed in order to be easy to manufacture, inexpensive to manufacture, and also designed to make sure that the marketer is happy with it and that it's going to sell. So that's a very important part of the design of a product as well. All of this is coordinated by a third-party logistics provider, an LP, a 3PL, that coordinates the flow of goods from the supplier to the manufacturer to the distributor, often is involved with point of sales data transmission as well, and returnables back to the manufacturer and or suppliers. Third-party logistics providers are often logistics companies that still are trucking companies, transportation companies, or warehousing companies. So this is what a supply chain might look like, sort of conceptually, with two different kinds of supply chain strategies that we've mentioned. If we look at supply chain systems designs, what we see are complex systems that have similarities but a lot of differences. So they're complicated, and the differences are very important and significant. We've already talked about push and pull systems, mass production versus build to order, but there are centralized supply chain networks as well. And these enable economies of scale. They allow for inventory pooling, reduced total buffer inventory, and reduced total capital expenditures. But again, they may suffer more stockouts and more obsolescence. Distributed supply chain networks, which are something that have become more and more of interest to industry recently, have their inventory and manufacturing close to demand, distributed, with the intent of being able to enable fast fulfillment. These are the agile systems that we're talking about. The fast fulfillment is the Amazon effect. And we'll talk a little bit more about Amazon and the impact of COVID-19 on Amazon in a few slides. We've heard about lean supply chains, just-in-time supply chains that eliminate buffer cost and remove as much waste in the supply chain as possible, mostly inventory, and also try to take advantage of economies of scale. And lean supply chains really require a level production schedule in order to work well. Very predictable demand, which is something that you do see in for example, the Japanese auto industry. But there are also agile supply chains for supply chains where demand or supply or manufacturing capacity is volatile. And these require a certain level of flexibility and the ability to reconfigure your network if need be as market conditions fluctuate. These are supply chains that are designed to, again, to deal with much more volatile demand-supply manufacturing capability than lean supply chains are. Okay, just to go to discussing costs. Where are the costs? What are the long-term trends in minimizing cost in supply chains? Well, we've talked about lean manufacturing and removing waste, lowering inventory, reducing lead times, both for product and transportation. We've seen a lot in the last 20 or 30 years, offshoring and outsourcing. Low-cost manufacturing is the reason for it, due to lower wage rates and lower cost of raw materials in other parts of the world. Of course, this low-cost manufacturing needs to be low enough to compensate for longer lead times and longer or larger transportation expenses, and also the disruptive part, usually minor disruptions associated with crossing borders, and also the greater transportation risk. Moving goods from Shanghai to the East Coast over the land bridge from a West Coast port, there are just many more things that can go wrong as compared to, say, moving components from 50 kilometers away from Toyota City, from Hamamatsu. And as a result, the predictability it goes down in terms of these kinds of global supply chains. Another minimizing cost issue follows from data-driven supply chains. We're now using data. There's more data to use. It's coming in with a higher bandwidth, and it's of greater variety now that allows data-driven real-time supply chain control to be much more efficient than it has been. Sometimes this is referred to monetizing data or trading inventory for trading information for inventory. So this is also a major long-term trend that minimizes not only cost but risk and other things. If we look to see what strategy, push or pull supply chains strategies have been working or have been becoming more and more useful, what we see are logistics costs. This is pre-Great Recession. Logistics costs since 1980 to about 2005. We see the percentage of U.S. GDP has come down, indicating that the logistics industry has become much more efficient in the United States. And logistics costs really come in three forms: administrative, transportation, and inventory cost. Administration is so small typically that we can sort of ignore it. And we see that in terms of percentage of U.S. GDP, transportation costs have really not changed very much over this period of time. Where the big emphasis has been in reducing inventories. And this is the impact of the just-in-time lean manufacturing emphasis that's come out of Japan and Toyota specifically, and how it's really benefited U.S. manufacturing and manufacturing all over the world. We also see it in inventory to sales ratio. You see after the pandemic as well. It's a little more complicated after the Great Recession of 2008. Things get a little more complicated, but you see the downward trend in this ratio of inventories to sales. We have lower inventories and we're selling more. That ratio is coming down. That's an indication that we have the right inventory in the right place and we don't have too much inventory. During recessions, of course, this ratio shoots up. And right after 2010, we see an uptick in this ratio. That has to do with the Amazon effect, the fact that we're distributing inventory more and we can't take into account risk pooling in inventories. And then there was, in fact, kind of a recession in the 2016-2018 period that isn't treated by the U.S. Bureau of the Census here as a recession, but in fact was in terms of the logistics industry. So this is an indication also that we've really moved from mass production more to build-to-order mass customization. We see it in other data. We see the wonderfully efficient U.S. logistics industry running a GDP percentage of under 8%. It's considerably higher in other countries. In the EU, it's about 10%. In India, it's 16%. In the mainland China, it runs between 18 and 19%. It's an indication that we have the United States has an efficient logistics. Okay, moving on to risks. In dealing with global supply chain risks, we've already seen that just-in-time supply chains are wonderful in terms of reducing costs, but they're fragile and they don't degrade gracefully when disruptions occur. A prime example of that in the last bullet, a major disruption that I'll mention is the ISYE P-valve factory fire in 1997 with Toyota. ISYE is a major supplier in their Keiretsu in Japan with Toyota. P-valve is an important component in brakes in automobiles. You got to have a P-valve for brakes to work, and cars need brakes. Ishinseki was the only supplier of P-valves to Toyota, and Ishinseki made those P-valves in only one factory. That factory burned to the ground, and within 2 hours, the Toyota supply chain was breaking down. Assembly plants were stopping assembly, and the entire system was down within 2 days. It's an example of a very fragile, the fragility of the just-in-time supply chain. Offshore and outsourcing, as we mentioned, there are many operational risks that were really initially unrecognized in long supply chains. And basically, the longer the lead time or travel time, the larger the lead time variability, and that has put a greater emphasis on reshoring, or at least reducing the length of time, the distance of these supply chains, moving supplier bases from Southeast Asia, for example, to Mexico. We've also, in large part because of the coronavirus, seen a concern over over-reliance of foreign non-partner country suppliers for supply chains that are associated with national security. For example, the pharmaceuticals. Southeast Asia accounts for over 60% of exports and imports to us in the United States of antibiotics, sedatives, and other medicines and pharmaceuticals. And this has resulted in an interest in strengthening domestic supplier bases. A lot of discussion right now in Washington about that. Now, supply chains have been used to uncertainties, variations in customer demand, seasonal or during the week. There's always a supplier that doesn't quite get the components to the assembler in time. That occasionally happens. Their manufacturing equipment is not always reliable, and neither is the labor force. But these are uncertainties that have been experienced before and can be built into most supply chains. The kinds of uncertainties we're talking about are major disruptions like extreme weather, the supplier disruptions that I mentioned with Ishinseki, and geopolitical stresses, trade wars. And if we're dealing with a variety of different countries have different IP and regulation policies and laws. That can, and they can change very quickly without notification. That can make a difference. And of course, pandemics, specifically COVID, which will be something we'll talk about directly in just a minute. Well, okay, supply chains need a little more resilience and agility than perhaps we were lulled into believing before we saw a variety of different major disruptions. Gardner gives 6 strategies for supply chain resilience, and we'll be talking about most of them. What we mean by supply chain resilience and agility is the ability to quickly adjust to sudden disruptive changes that were not expected, that can negatively affect supply chain performance. And a McKinsey survey of senior supply chain executives just recently, in the last couple of months, have indicated that 93% of these executives are now planning to increase the level of resilience across their supply chains. And this survey included a variety of different industries and a variety of different geographies, not just in the United States, but in other parts of the world. Okay, well, how can we, or how does one, strengthen supply chain resiliency and agility? Well, one thing is continued use of real-time data for real-time supply chain control, the value of information that we've mentioned a little bit earlier. It can be used to reduce cost, but it also can data can and the value in data can also increase supply chain stability and mitigate risks. And when we're talking about resiliency and agility, that's risk mitigation, essentially. We can also redesign our product and supply chain to reduce lead times and increase agility. And based on next generation data analytics that we're hearing a lot about, machine learning and so forth, we can come up with more accurate demand forecasts and anticipate problems that might occur. So these are ways of strengthening supply chain resiliency and agility too. But the major way is to build in redundancy. And that means increasing inventory levels of raw material, work in progress, WIP, and also the final product, adding manufacturing or storage capacity to improve surge capability. After a disruption, sometimes you need to surge in order to satisfy demand. Geographically distribute manufacturing or storage capability to improve resilience. I mentioned fire protection. HP requires you to put no more than $1 billion worth of its printers in a warehouse just to make sure that there's not an extreme loss in what they have, but also the geographically distributed manufacturing allows for variable exchange rates across countries and also variable demand across countries. You can increase the number of suppliers of key materials, work in progress, and also you'd want to, of course, ensure that your supplier base is economically stable and is capable of surge if needed. And also there's advantage in having your supplier base geographically distributed. An example of nearshoring, at least some capability, and the supplier base, General Motors, they will have a low cost supplier in, for example, mainland China or Southeast Asia, but they'll also have a domestic supplier that's guaranteed perhaps 10% of the building, as long as of the bill, the order, as long as they're able to. They have surge capability just in case they lose that low cost supplier to some kind of a disruption. They'll have a backup domestically. But the reality is resiliency and agility are costly. And this is the conundrum that supply chains are in right now. We want to build resiliency and agility in supply chains. We don't want to do it at a lot of cost, however, because we compete a lot on the basis of cost, the products that we produce with these supply chains. Okay, nearshoring. Well, the argument is that with trade wars and a pandemic, it's too risky for multinationals to outsource to anything other than partner countries, and also to stay as domestic as possible. But the reality is industry isn't doing this. Industry is still investing, foreign direct investment in mainland China. It's continued to rise. We haven't seen a growth in factory jobs in the United States. As a matter of fact, we've seen a significant reduction in factory jobs in the United States since 2016. And while U.S. trade policy has made doing business abroad difficult, and due to the higher wages in the United States and the attraction of foreign markets as a result, particularly labor cost, most global businesses are choosing to remain global. And they may be moving out of mainland China, but they're moving to Southeast Asia and Mexico and other relatively low-wage countries. So a conclusion right now, at least, is we're not seeing reasons for these multinationals to do anything other than outsource to low-wage markets. That incentive to globalize still prevails, perhaps less so but still prevails. Let's move on to COVID-19 and what we've experienced. Well, three things I'll mention. We've seen surges in customer demand for some supply chains. These are ones that are related to groceries and household products. Significant increase, surges in some of these products, and dramatic decreases in customer demand for other products. For example, auto. In the first month of the coronavirus, there was a 97% drop in demand. So these are huge shifts in demand for supply chains. Virtually all of them. And basically supply chains are designed around demand. They're tuned around demand. With respect to surges in healthcare-related products and equipment, we've seen not only a surge in demand, but also the demand has shifted geographically from hotspot to hotspot. There are initially hotspots are on the West Coast, then they shifted to the East Coast, and and right now they're in the upper Midwest primarily, and a little bit more to the West again. So here again, healthcare-related products and equipment, the complication is not only change in demand, but change in the geography of demand. Okay. Surge in online shopping as a result. And what's the impact on Amazon? Amazon's added 400,000 jobs just this year to handle this surge. And it has grown in fulfillment capability, the ability to get things to your house, by 50% just this year. Amazon was big to begin with, and look how it's grown this year. As a matter of fact, last quarter, third quarter, this year, their sales jumped to revenues of close to $100 billion. This is a huge growth in their business. And yet we see layoffs in other companies, ExxonMobil, Disney, American Airlines, many bankruptcies in retail, huge shifts in demand, and which have caused these huge shifts in industries and at the firm level due to the coronavirus. E-commerce penetration percentage has just grown like crazy. 10 years of growth in 3 months we've seen in terms of e-commerce. We've gone from about 15% penetration right before the new year to over close to 35% just in the first quarter of this year. Now the e-commerce penetration percentage in the U.S. is smaller than other countries. That 15% beginning of the year is 25% in mainland China. But still, we've also seen dramatic growth in this e-commerce penetration in other countries as well, but dramatically in the United States. More people expect to make a portion of their purchases online post-COVID-19. And this is a breakdown of those purchases, whether it's over-the-counter medicine or groceries or household supplies, consumer electronics, books, tobacco, whatever. We see expected growth after the COVID-19. So the pandemic is really accelerating these changes that we have been expecting, and we can see the acceleration most dramatically there in this slide. Okay, 15 to 30% we're seeing. Low touch activities. These are activities where restaurant delivery, grocery delivery, meal kit delivery. Also dramatic increases as a result of COVID-19. And this is the B2C, the business to consumer, last mile delivery, fast fulfillment that Amazon is noted for, the Amazon effect. is being felt by UPS, FedEx, DHL, Xinfang Express in China, mainland China. That's their UPS, has also seen a dramatic increase in business. For example, Xinfang, they're traded on the Shenzhen stock market. Their stock has gone from, in U.S. terms, about $40 a share at the turn of the year to about over 90 now. So significant growth. And you've also seen significant growth in stock shares in of the integrated service providers that I mentioned earlier. Americans are spending their time differently now, and how they spend their time is reflected in demand of certain products, and this explains some of the shifts that we've seen. This slide here explains some of the shifts in demand that we showed in the earlier diagram just before this one. COVID-19 has had impacts on the various modes. This is greatly oversimplified, but I thought I'd mention it because we often don't think of transportation modes as part of supply chains. They're very important for them. Trucking, the demand shifts have required rerouting, scheduling changes, and even if you have a head haul, you're not disrupted as a trucking company to move goods from A to B. In order for your for-hire company to be productive and make money, you have to have backhauls, but backhauls have been affected significantly in trucking. There's been initially there was a significant drop in the spot market, lots of bankruptcies. The bottleneck has been in the last mile just because of the fact that e-commerce has grown so fast and the need for moving goods from retail to the home instead of people going to retail to pick up things. Now they're expecting Amazon and other last mile companies to do the delivery for them. For example, P&G never really ran out of paper products. They had enough paper products for everybody, but we've seen where bathroom tissue and other paper products in grocery stores, it appeared that there was a supply chain problem, but really the problem was getting the products to retail from the distribution centers. Rail volumes were down significantly initially. A lot of it was due to the fact that there were motor vehicles and parts that people just weren't buying cars and trucks, and as a result, there was a lack of petroleum products as a result. The oil industry took a dramatic hit. Intermodal demand plunged. Last mile delivery surged 10 times. Mentioned Amazon stock price has gone up 60% in 1 year. It's an amazing story. And we've already seen how e-commerce and last mile delivery has accelerated. Air cargo, interesting impact here in air cargo. It turns out almost half of the air cargo is actually carried in passenger planes. It's called belly freight. Much of this capacity was lost because passengers weren't flying. As a result, there were capacity shortages for air cargo and increased demand for air cargo, and as a result, increased prices. Steamship lines also suffered. Demand was down significantly. It's right now quite up, the demand for steamship lines, and costs have gone up because there are supply chain delays as a result of labor shortages and other coronavirus-related delays. This is a very nice article in today's Wall Street Journal on the impact on steamship lines of the coronavirus. Okay, moving on. let me make some final comments about some other forces that are affecting supply chains beside COVID-19. They're all interrelated, but I'll mention cybersecurity and automation, and then give a vision for next generation supply chains to end the talk. Cybersecurity is a growing concern, primarily because supply chains are using information or data more and more, and the increases in productivity that we're seeing in supply chains, much of it has to do with the fact that we're able to extract value out of data coming into these supply chains, and as a result, the supply chain, the cybersecurity risk has gone up. Another aspect is additive manufacturing. Additive manufacturing implies, or in some point times suggests, not only information about demand, but also the need to transmit data that's product design data. So this is a dramatic increase in the flow of data for supply chains that involve additive manufacturing capability or capacity. So as a result, there is really more damage that can be done by a cybersecurity breach. A lot of smart people who are intelligent, adaptive adversaries also, and this is probably the most formidable cybersecurity threat, the intentional attack by an intelligent, adaptive adversary who can learn. So what we need in supply chains and represent the next generation cybersecurity tools and techniques to be able to identify deceptions, anticipate and deter attacks, and if you can't deter them, quickly detect it, respond to it, recover from it, and learn from it. And also try to learn what your adversary also learned from it, so you're a little smarter the next time you're facing an attack. Automation. If whatever component or product can be made by automation, by a robot, then there's less of a reason to offshore for lower wage rates. You can automate at home or domestically at the same cost, at least in terms of the automation is concerned. Here I just show the annual installations of industrial robots in the 15 largest markets in last year, primarily China and Japan, the big population countries, but you also see the Republic of Korea there, well represented. And let's go to the next slide and look at robot density, the robots installed per 10,000 employees. And Republic of China is right up there, but the biggest user of robots in terms of density is Singapore. They have more jobs than they have people, and as a result, they need robots to make up the difference. So we'll watch this and see if automation really has a significant impact in reducing the need to source offshore. Okay, and with that, we can go to my last slide and talk about reducing the cost of supply chain resiliency, next generation supply chains. What are they going to look like? Well, as we mentioned, resilience is expensive. And we see that we need to build resilience and agility into supply chains. However, because of the cost, we see that competitive advantage will result if a firm's supply chain resilience and agility are certainly as good in terms of risk mitigation as the competition's, but at lower costs. So how can we lower the cost of resilience? And there are a variety of different ways of doing this. First is inventory rebalancing. This is something that Amazon does all the time. It's called transshipment. They're moving goods from where they're overstocked to areas of the country where they're understocked. And that transshipment would be not only finished products, but also raw materials and work in progress. Another part of the solution that we are seeing and imagining are capacity rebalancing. This is actually geographically relocating production capacity or storage capacity. Right now, Xinhuang Express in Shenzhen is examining the implication of storage capacity, moving it around geographically, and are seeing dramatic ways of reducing the cost of last mile delivery as a result. And so this is a new part of the solution that's being examined right now. The implications are that the supply chain of the future is going to be, as we see it, blending the advantages of distributed supply chains in terms of enabling fast fulfillment, the Amazon effect, and central supply chain systems that enable economies of scale and inventory and risk reduction and capex reduction. And as a result, supply chains that will be resilient may end up being either lean or agile, depending on need. And this will be what we envision as the supply chain of the future, in large part motivated by what we've seen about the impact of COVID-19 on supply chains. And with that, let me say thank you for listening. I appreciate your attention, and I look forward to answering any questions or hearing any comments you have. Billy D., I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Chip. Really appreciate the presentation. I think you did a great job of just covering the fundamentals from an academic perspective on supply chain and logistics, and giving us, a glimpse at the trends that have been trending in this field, as well as some of the possible solutions, really, to the resilience and agility of the supply chain. And I think I just want to encourage everyone right now, go ahead and submit your questions for Chip, because I've had one question come in, and I've actually answered it already. It was about a recording. But go ahead and submit your questions. But Chip, I think that this is a great talk and a good segue for the remainder of our series. Since today we have sort of an academic perspective on supply chain and logistics, the next two talks, the next two seminars will be in industry perspectives. We'll have Alan Amling, who's the former VP of Corporate Strategy, VP of Marketing for UPS Global Logistics and Distribution. We'll speak next week. Also, we'll talk about COVID's impact on supply chain from an industry perspective. And then we'll also have we'll have actually a technical fellow from Boeing speak in 2 weeks, really about the impact of Industry 4.0 on the supply chain problems. So this is a popular topic right now, and we're definitely going to explore it in detail. As of right now, Dr. White, I don't have any questions that are coming up. I guess maybe I can try to start off a question here. I did see, we were speaking about the trucking industry, and there seemed to be a reduction in the demand, at least I saw, for some of these transportation industries. So, which I thought was interesting, because with there have been surges in demand for specific products. So, but I guess overall, Are we seeing a reduction in actually the trucking industry? Is that with this pandemic?
Well, it depends on the part of the industry. Actually, if you're talking about retail, most clothes, toys, and so forth are moved on the ground or on water because they're not high cost per pound, and that would affect the truckload industry in the United States in terms of trucking. So there'd be a reduction in the amount of tonnage that's moved by the truckload industry. In terms of durable goods manufacturing, much of those logistics from suppliers to OEMs are moved by the less than truckload industry. So they would see a reduction as well. Now, healthcare products tend to be often moved by air, particularly in emergencies. So air cargo, we see a rise in that, and also last mile fulfillment trucking that would be more UPS, FedEx. It'll be interesting to hear Alan Ameling's comments next week about the impact on UPS. I'm sure he's kept up, and it's been a dramatic increase. So the increases and decreases haven't been uniform, depending on the part of the trucking industry or the other modes of the logistics industry.
Thank you, Chip. We had a couple of questions just now come in. First one is, how do you see the role of robots automation affecting human employment in future supply chains? I know for Singapore it is a necessity, so I'm curious about Europeans and American markets.
Well, we're already seeing it. I mean, if you go into an assembly plant, auto assembly plant, you don't see too many people. And this is true, well, not only in the United States, but elsewhere. So you do see robots able to replace human labor. And we're seeing, of course, robots also that are being built that can work alongside humans, which is very interesting. But let's talk about wage rates. That robot that perhaps can perform a certain function in Vietnam, if it can perform the same function in the United States, the wage rate disparity difference is mitigated, is reduced. And as a result, as I'm imagining this now or hypothesizing it, that the more robotics that we see, the more automation that we see in supply chain, there'll be less need to offshore and as much as we have, say, in the late 90s and early parts of this century.
All right, we have more questions coming in. Next one. Thank you for sharing your insights. This is from Professor Yan Wang. Could you please comment on the difference between resilience and reliability? Reliability emphasizes redundancy. Resilience appears to be not.
There are, well, a variety of different definitions. I didn't use the word robustness also. Resilience typically means the ability to sense a disruption, in other words, identify, detect it, muddle through the disruption, and then recover from it after it's over. Reliability has to do with the likelihood that whatever it is that needs to be reliable, like a manufacturing a machine, for example, breaks down. So that reliability is important. In resilience, you certainly do need your capacity, your production capacity, manufacturing capacity, in order to remain resilient. So they are interrelated, but they are different and distinct, but they are interrelated.
Okay, thank you. Another question, could you please give examples on machine learning statistical applications on supply chain data, such as inventory, demand, et cetera, in order to enable supply chain agility during uncertain times, such as a pandemic?
Oh, well, okay. That basically, if you're talking about machine learning and reinforcement learning, perhaps more specifically, uh, what you have is you have demand that's shifting. You just really don't know what it is. I mean, if you give me a cumulative distribution of demand, I'm fine. I can tune my supply chain around it. What I don't know when there's a disruption is what that demand is going to look like. So I have to learn it. Various statistical data techniques that um, uh, are referred to as machine learning and reinforcement learning can be very helpful in extracting giving me some indication of what demand is so that I can do some forecasting. So that's basically sort of the answer. Now, just to go a little deeper, if we talk about machine learning, it assumes basically the same kind of fundamental model that supply chains do, markup decision processes. But it assumes that you don't know anything about them. But with supply chains, you know that they are part of them are inventory systems, part of them are production systems, and you know a lot of things about them. So a blend of what you know about the supply chain plus machine learning techniques, embedding some of this knowledge in machine learning techniques and reinforcement learning, I think are quite frankly a very good foundational direction to for academics to work in.
Excellent, excellent. Next question. What makes the cost of business logistics in the US more efficient than not only China and India, but also Europe?
Okay. We might get a little debate on Europe and the U.S., but basically there in Europe, what has happened is at one point the countries had their own barriers, trade barriers, and the EU has tried to reduce that, but there's still laws called cabotage laws, where if you deliver, if you're a German trucking company and you deliver in Italy, your backhaul is limited, whereas it's not in the States and the United States. And basically the trucking industry in Europe still takes on sort of a country focus. They're German companies, French companies, and so forth. And the efforts of the EU to reduce the trade barriers and the impacts of the legacy laws, language barriers, and other laws are the cause of a little less efficiency in Europe. In If we go to India, what we see is a major effort on the part of India to improve its roads and also its rail system. Any country that's a former British colony has probably a well-developed rail system for moving freight, as India does. And as a result, the Indian logistics industry is becoming more efficient, but there are still changes. You go across different provinces in India, and you still have taxes. China, this is the same thing. China has provinces that moving across borders, the interpretation of the size and weight regulations in China, it varies from province to province. If you want to have a national network in China, like UPS and FedEx would like to have, it's very difficult because of the different interpretations of the regulatory structure in China in the different provinces. So those are the causes for some of the inefficiencies in the logistics industry and other parts of the world.
Thank you, Chip. We still have a couple more questions, so I think we'll try to get those in, even though it's
Okay.
about 1 o'clock now. If you don't mind, if you
No,
have time,
no,
awesome.
I do.
So, question from Bob Harbort: as more end users start driving the endpoint logistics of supply chains, for example, Amazon, do you see the potential for increases in security issues?
Yes, physical security, absolutely, and that's an issue that's very important. The cybersecurity is an important issue, but when we have complex supply chains, we also have to consider physical security. And the last mile delivery is a potentially weak link in physical security for supply chains, no doubt about it. And that is a concern I know that is discussed. I don't see it written very much in circles that are associated with defense supply chains.
Okay, we have actually a global audience member from the UK, University of Cambridge,
Okay.
has a question here. So this is great because we're trying to expand our global audience.
Great.
In the case of healthcare and food or other essential industries, is there a role for government to ensure supply security? Do we have useful frameworks to explore this context?
Well, I'll share my opinion, and the answer is certainly yes. Basically, all firms, their board of directors will try to discuss how the firm can be more profitable and also how the firm can mitigate risk. But at the firm level, there's really no discussion about mitigating risk at the national level for security reasons. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a real need, a real place for government to expand the conversation, the dialogue in terms of risk mitigation for supply chains that have security implications. And I think that discussion is going on in the United States now fairly significantly. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's going on in the UK as well and in Europe.
Well, thank you, Chip. Really appreciate the presentation. And thank you to our audience as well for chiming in and actually asking a lot of great questions. We're actually a little bit over time. So I've already mentioned, that we're going to remain on this topic for the next couple of weeks. Seems to be a popular topic. So please tune back in at the same time next Monday. And if you want to hear the recording of this lecture, we post our recordings on the website at manufacturing.gatech.edu/lectures. So the recording for this today will be reposted in a few days. So I appreciate everybody's time. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great Monday.